It's Wreckin' and Rappin', a podcast with a purpose. I'm your host, Mr. Chris Cooper, that's MC Cooper, here with Alex and Flizzo. Today we'll discuss how perception affects reality. But first, let's play Wrecking or Rapping. Life is trivial trivia, but before I get rid of ya, let's rap on the real undisputed the champ up in here bumping beats for a meal, but the truth you can deal with any trials or tribulations. By all means, no hesitations. What I mean in your life, have a destination. Don't stop till you're there, drop kick, pull some hair, fight for yourself. What's right, you can tell, now it's time to inhale. You got this. Wrecking or rapping, you must choose one.
I'm just
gonna go with rapping.
All right.
Wrecking. You cut out a few times there. For me, at least.
I saw my internet upload quality dropped there, so I don't know if that was Chris or if that was me. But
that's a North Korean hack.
Oh no,
yeah.
We've made enemies at the top, the highest levels of North Korea, the highest levels of the lowest scum. It's all right. We got one rap. I was pretty proud of that rap. It had its origins in this past weekend when the boys were visiting me at Cooper's Castle. Somebody said that the life is trivial trivia. And then I was going to say something with business, and then everybody rejected it as a rhyme. Anyway, I don't like psychologists labeling people. And this weekend, the Ben provided definitions that a label is the term outwardly put on a person, and branding is what they inwardly think of themselves. Most of what we'll discuss is negative labels that should be positive branding. So years ago, I was seeing a psychologist, words, and she recommended seeing her partner, a psychiatrist, pills. Together, they determined I had OCD tendencies and offered a medicated route. This is a soft diagnosis that gives the patient an option to accept the label or not. How you feel about soft diagnoses?
So a soft diagnosis is what them telling you like, hey, I think this is your issue, and this is how we would solve that.
Yeah, and where I guess I'm coming at on calling it soft is that when you accept it on yourself, it's going to change something in your head and change how you, whether or not you seek treatment, it's going to change how you behave in life. And before anyone says that, but there are actual sick people out there, as with all our topics, I realize there are cases where the opposite of what we're saying is true. That's not the majority, and we would never get anywhere if we got distracted talking about every variation. This is where a lot of socialist organizations fail to get off the ground. They have a town hall meeting and can't decide what color ink should the notes be written in. Should they be typed? What words are acceptable to use? Does this sound like anything we've heard recently? We touched on before a need for inequality. Someone has to hold the gavel and demand order, representing the physical force to remove disturbances.
I feel like we just like fast forward it real quick.
like topic change real fast.
It's wrecking and rapping. We're wrecking it up.
Let's go back to labels and stuff like that.
Yeah, labels and branding.
I like the soft diagnosis because then like my body adjusts to the thing, like not even consciously, because I know with like I have acid reflux, and when I like actually got diagnosed, my body adjusted to how to handle it better, knowing what the issue was, rather than that whole like 6 months I spent with a horrible stomach pain and not knowing what it was.
So I've dealt with people that have different types of psychological issues, more major than something like OCD. And I just know that talking to them, if you just come out and say like, hey, I think this is your issue, especially when it's something major, they reject it altogether. And they're like, no, that's definitely not what's going on. You know, there definitely is, turtle people after me. When you
think
but
they
if you
need a
introduce
soft
it
diagnosis?
I think that a soft diagnosis would kind of like
Did you have an
soften the
example?
blow. Like,
You were gonna
hey,
say-
I think something is.
If you introduced it a softer way, like how you could do that?
Yeah, if you're like, hey, I think what you're experiencing is kind of sounds like XYZ. I think you should seek something for this. If you explain it that way, then it's more likely to land with them than to just a hard punch in the face of like, hey, this is you're suffering from this. This is the problem. You got to fix it. So I think a soft diagnosis would help. I mean, it's probably industry standard. I don't know because I'm not in that world.
Yeah,
but,
same.
I think it's just because they deal with a broad range of issues that it's kind of like how they do things. They do a soft diagnosis. They're like, all right,
What
I
I
think this is what's going on, and this is how you would help it. Um,
what I
and
did
it
learn in
works
terms
on
of
the
like
broader range of
the
things.
punch in the face that people need is, this kind of even goes with conspiracy theory talk, is people get caught up in their head or their own little worlds, and it's useful to say, no, that's not reality. Like, you're just imagining a lot of things. And I don't necessarily mean like the turtle people. For example, Alex had an instance where he was at a fast food place and he felt that they were being bigoted towards him. It could be like, no, that wasn't happening. Although they might have been in that case.
Oh no, that definitely happened. I was judged by the way I looked and the card I carried.
Well, were you wearing that jester hat? Because that
He was wearing, yeah, he was wearing a pink
I mean, that would
Hawaiian
probably be a
shirt.
different kind of judgment.
I feel like you
okay,
Yeah.
generally get a better reaction with the gesture hat. I need to start wearing my outfit outdoors. I still wear it to sleep at night, but I haven't taken it outside. But I don't know the last time I've been outside, honestly. Uh, a label I had
yeah.
an example of was low T, and how that affects a person's ego, and that the right amount of T is not a number. Hashtag remember snake pit therapy. I don't think there were snake pits. It refers to a book and movie adaptation titled Snake Pit Therapy and describes how bad psych hospitals get. And the patients don't do better in prison, because what do you do with a crazy person? They're put in solitary and or drugged. It's only those with more compassion that will try to help those poor unfortunate souls. But the helper gets shook to the core when faced with the reality that some people can't be helped, and those are who we label sick. That made me think
So
of the turtle people.
yeah, I think so. The only thing you have in life, in reality, is what you perceive as true. So if people are telling you what you perceive as true is false, then what do you have?
Mm-hmm.
Because everything is false now.
Yeah,
Or
you're
you can't
spiraling out of
trust your
control.
eyes, you can't trust your ears, you can't trust your senses. So if you can't trust your senses, then yeah, you're gonna spiral out of control because now you don't know what is real, what's not, and it's gonna be a really hard time adjusting for you. So
And
that's why I think that soft diagnosis exists. As far as the labeling and giving you labels like low T, labels like that can I guess they can hurt you because you're like, oh, if I don't have testosterone, then am I a man?
because
Like
that's what
I'm
I
not
was
a
thinking
man
with a
anymore.
lot of
And
people that
then you
end up
could
with
just
IVF, and so it's like, oh, you have a low sperm count, and so they think, yeah, I'm less of a man because of that. But I don't buy into
No.
science to begin with.
With
well,
those
I
numbers,
mean,
that's
I
something that
buy
can
into
be
science.
measured. So I guess like they're using a scale and an average. But on the other one of like your reality, do people not just sometimes slip out of like reality and they aren't sure if they are where they currently are? Like I've had
I
times
mean,
where I'm like sitting in bed or on the couch or something and go, wait, am I driving a car right now? Because like in my mind, I might be doing something different than I physically am, and I have to like gauge where I physically am compared to where my brain is.
Yeah, I don't
I don't know
know
about
if I've
that.
had. I mean, I'll have a thing where I'm laying down
Maybe
and
like
I
when you
like
first
get the
wake up,
sensation of
but
falling, but never like, am I mowing the
No,
lawn?
no, I've
No.
I've literally been sitting somewhere and went
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, I'm kind of questioning if I'm actually crazy right now because I definitely have those moments where like
Well, don't
I
see a
think I might
doctor,
be somewhere else
because
than I am,
they're
and
just
then
going to
like,
tell you about their
well,
industry
I get that.
standards.
You ever? I've gotten where I remember the fact that I had to switch to the 24-hour clock uh, because I
Hmm.
woke up one time and it was I don't know, probably like 6 p.m. But my clock said 6 p.m. You know, six something. I woke up and I thought I was
Mm.
late for work, thinking it was 6 a.m. and just had this freak out and just like you know I look outside.
um,
It's kind of dark, but kind of the sun. It seemed like the sun was rising, but it was really the sun was setting.
Yeah. You have to
And just
process a
having
lot of
that disconnect
information,
with
and your brain is
reality.
just turning on.
yeah, no, I mean I've been there. That's
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. So I always equate it to that, where it's like you don't know what's going on, and you just kind of like, wait, am I? Is it this? Is it that? I don't know. But just do that on the scale of, is there a bunch of Ninja Turtles like chasing me down the street?
But I think that's where numbers are helpful, is that they have that clear-cut distinction that you could say we're on this side of the numbers. We're at 2000 instead of whatever is it, 8 a.m. But that it gets twisted the longer, long in time sense that these organizations stand around. There are some things that I can't even talk about, of how, like, what the DSM-5, I think it is where, like, the diagnoses, how something was labeled a mental illness and then it's not anymore. So it's, well, if you were wrong then, why are you right now? But we'll talk about that more in the second
Right.
half of the show. Let's have some light humor with Shakespeare. I'm reading Sonnet 69 this time. Those parts of thee
Nice.
that the world's eye doth view want nothing that the thought of hearts can mend. All tongues, the voice of souls, give thee that due, uttering bare truth, even so as foes commend. Thy outward thus with outward praise is crowned, but those same tongues that give thee so thine own, in other accents do this praise confound, by seeing further than the eye hath shown. They look into the beauty of thy mind, and that in guess they measure by thy deeds. Then churls their thoughts, although their eyes were kind, to the fair flower add the rank smell of weeds. But why the odor matcheth not thy show? The soil is this, that thou dost common grow. What do you think 69 was about?
Weed.
Not about what it should be about.
Yeah, well, I don't know if he numbered them the way we have them numbered. It was probably just like papers scattered around a room, and they collected them and put them in whatever order they think. But that would be a thing.
You know,
I'm
I
not
never
should
sure
have
thought
talked
about
about
numbers
POV.
the way we used didn't exist then.
Yeah, we went to POV. We should have talked about when did 69 get its origins. It's like somebody wrote the two down and like, hey, check this out. Huh? I remember that happening in
that
fifth
seems
grade.
like some like 60s, 70s type deal.
Well, probably because of weed.
Look at them numbers. They look like that.
Don't these numbers look like people?
No, for 69.
Please take a
But that's
moment
like the
to
420,
subscribe and
like-
follow
Acid.
the channel. Slithering snail snot. It's time for Alex's Wreck of the Week.
This one, I mean, it's not meant to be offensive, and it's not, but people might take things the wrong way.
I'm
I'm
really
going to
we've
go with my
started
rec
that.
this week is speech impediments.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, as someone that has a speech impediment, I'm allowed to say the word, so it's okay. But
Okay.
Word speech impediment.
well, yeah,
But
you
you're
know,
allowed to
you know what I'm
complain
implying.
about them.
But yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Like,
But what do you, aside from having one, what do you dislike about it? About them, I guess. Those people.
well, it branches into two directions. The first
Okay.
one here was what started the thought was, what was it? Shameful.
Hmm.
Oh,
Shameful
what was the? I
sushi.
said it to you, and
Shameful
then
sushi.
yes. Gosh darn it! Now that I added the word sushi, I can't say the word shameful.
Shameful
Shameful
sushi?
sushi. Yeah, like, so I can say sushi and I can say shameful, but when I put them together, I can't say shameful sushi. Like, I
Can you
can't.
say slithering snail snot?
And I don't know why.
I added that
my
just
brain
for
just
you.
won't let me put so many S's in one sentence.
You have to do
had
some exercises.
No, I'm
Like
not
when
going to do any
people
like
do
sort
that
of like
Peter
She
Piper,
shells,
there are
she
vocal
shores.
exercises. Yeah,
Yeah, that
but I'm
one
not
too.
doing any of that. The other thing on speech impediments is, for some reason, people always interpret it as an, like, you're foreign, so it's like an accent
have one.
almost.
Mhm.
Really?
Because I've had that a lot. Like, yeah, people, like, you meet them and they're like, "Oh, where are you from?" And you're like, "I'm not from any." There was
Well, if you
this time
say
when I worked back
Wooder
at
and
Kohl's
Pello.
like 12 years ago. I'm willing to bet that came from
I'm
the
from
fact
the
that the way
island of Delco.
well, so I told this lady, I was ringing around, and she's like, "Oh, where are you from? I love your voice." And I said, "Oh, I'm from Derby." And she said,
Mhm.
"Oh, I plan to visit there someday." And then
Well,
I was like, "She does not
You don't
mean
know where it is, lady.
Pennsylvania."
to be fair, Darby is
Uh-oh.
there's a spot in England, so I mean,
But that's the point. Like, that's not what I meant. But like, she heard that my impediment sounds like some sort of foreign accent to people. I saw this one girl
Mhm.
on TikTok who has a very heavy speech impediment. She sounds like she was from Boston, though. Like, if you didn't know it was a speech impediment, you probably would just be like, "Oh, you're like born and raised in a single neighborhood, and this is where your tone comes
yeah,
from."
but is she from Boston?
Well, yeah. Do you know?
I don't believe so. It's definitely a speech impediment. No, it's
But
you can
I mean,
listen and
she
hear
could
it's a
have
speech
both,
impediment.
though.
Maybe people
yeah,
that
but
don't know what speech impediments sound like.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. She could
I
be
mean,
from
I guess
Boston with a
she
speech impediment.
she
Yeah.
could. And then I mean, what's that? Aaron earned an iron earn, but that's Baltimore.
Oh,
Baltimore,
Yeah,
Baltimore.
from Baltimore. If you have them, there's a
yeah. It's iron,
TikTok or a
iron,
YouTube
iron,
video
iron.
out there. Yeah, iron. But yeah, I mean, it's not really like a
That
wreck.
could be
I
a
don't
good
hate my
rap.
speech impediment, but I just like I love it when people go like, "Oh, what's that accent?" And I go, "Oh, it's a speech impediment," and then they feel bad, and then I laugh either out loud or internally because I
Yeah,
find
but
it
here's the
funny.
thing, though. You do have an accent.
But because it's an impediment.
No, no, no,
No.
no. You have an accent.
Yeah.
You know
For
all of my siblings. Why would I be the only one to have the
No,
accent?
no.
well,
They all have the
I
accent
put
as
the
well.
effort
You
in to
also have the
lose
accent.
a lot of the words that you still say. Like I used to say them, and then I learned other people
Oh,
don't,
but
so
that's
I
because
got
the
rid of them.
army beat it out of you.
No, it's me. Similar with the cursing. It's just like I know this thing
Oh,
makes me a nail that stands out, and I don't want to get hit, so change it up.
So if you say like crown and say instead of crayon,
oh,
that
I thought
is
you were
your
talking about
accent.
The Chris Crown.
yeah, the crown on his head, not the
No, when
crown.
you say
Yeah,
pillow or whatever,
yeah, but I'm
say
the
Yeah,
only person that
crown
says
instead of
pillow. No one
crayon.
else says pillow.
and
Yeah, but
Wooder isn't an
that's a
impediment.
regional accent the way you say it.
Is it?
Wooder
Yeah, when you
ice.
say water a certain way,
Yeah,
wooder.
but I wasn't
When you
thinking
say
water
wooder,
is an impediment. That's just. I mean, the world
But
might
so,
think that's an impediment, but
but but so you accept that you have an accent when you're saying Wooder, right?
that's different.
no, it's
Oh,
not.
okay.
That's announcing the letters different. Whereas like the other accent where I've had multiple people ask me if I was from England. That's not because of the way I say water.
Do you have
I
an
mean, you
example
look
Like,
of an
English
impediment
enough.
that you can't say shameful sushi?
well, it's all just the way that
What's an shameful sushi? What's an example
Shingle?
of your impediment?
Oh,
okay.
shameful shoosie. I can't say it.
So as a
Well, yeah, I
speech
mean
impediment.
that would I guess be the most current one. I don't like write things down, but yeah, like when you get called on certain S's and F's and things like that. Also, I've been an adult and learned to not have such a dominant like as a child. It was I know I definitely couldn't say F's.
Mm,
I've done my time in those speech trailers and things like that.
yeah,
Speech
I've
trailers. What
I've been
is
in a
that?
speech trailer. It's where they separate you from the rest of the kids because you're not
Yeah.
going fast
I
enough, and so they're going to slow you down. Which is why I'm saying about
I've
these
never experienced that.
labels things is like because at a certain point in my life, I rejected that stuff and said like I'm not the idiot that people are telling me I am, and I'm going to work twice as hard to catch up. I even have a thought in like sixth grade because we always say like everyone in our family can't spell. We still can't spell, but at that time I was like, well, I just accept that we can't spell. But then I said, no, I'm going to force myself to get over this. And so this is where I'm coming at with that stuff. And it's that not that everything can be overcome like that, but a lot of people give in to things like that. And a lot of people even sort of make up things. Like the Ben had shared a video with someone saying like, oh, I'm so OCD, like, but they're not, is the joke. Flizzo, anything from this week in
I
history?
mean, this week in history marks the civil rights applied to the Americans with Disabilities Act. So, July 26,
Fitting.
1990, President George H.W. Bush signed the Americans with Disabilities Act into law. And this landmark legislation prohibited discrimination against individuals with disabilities in employment, public accommodations, transportation, communications, and government services. So, that was something that was produced after decades of activism from disability rights advocates. And, it broke down barriers, expanded opportunities, and affirmed the dignity and worth of millions of Americans. So, speaking of speech impediments and stuff, the ADA has helped a lot of people.
It
And
also
standardized
probably started a lot of service
standardize
pets.
a lot of things that we take for granted. That didn't really come along until much later, but the initial of it was very. It needed to be done, and if you look at other countries, like they don't have the accommodations that they need for people who have crutches, who are in wheelchairs, who need those accommodations. America was the spearhead with that for a lot of things. So like
That's good to hear.
the standardized the rise and run of steps is ADA specific. I was in Ireland last year, and I was walking up the steps and I tripped, and I just kept tripping, and I'm like, what's going on with these steps? And I just realized that place was, it was an old place, but like those steps were ADA compliant, so they didn't have the right length, width, rise and run. So I'm like tripping and stuff, and I'm like, oh wow, if that was everywhere, then that was gonna like mess people up.
Your muscle memory for steps was failing you.
That goes with ramp access, elevator access, stuff like that. I was at the Hoover Dam Park, and they had ramp access. So somebody who's in a wheelchair can now access that place and see that beautiful sight of American ingenuity, where prior than that, then they didn't care. They're like, oh, you can't walk up the steps? Too bad. The ADA has brought more things for people, especially with like national parks and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I think some people abuse it now. Now they kind of,
there's a lot of ADA things that are taking advantage of, like the ramps for the sidewalks and whatnot, that like delivery men will park in front of them so they can unload easier and get up on the curb. And
but like if you ever pushed a baby stroller around on like curbs that don't have that drop for the ADA compliant stuff, and you're like dropping your kid down,
off-road
6-inch, 7-inch drop, and they're like popping down, like they wake up.
That's probably also another topic to get into in general, is people taking advantage of rules that were made for a subset group, and then it just gets open wide because it's like, well, I want something easier for me. But so moving on to, I want to say God bless America with all these benefits we've done. And speaking of God, it's time for our Bible reading. What I was trying to explain today is how faith saves. In today's Bible reading, we'll have a sick woman who believes if she can touch Jesus's robe, she'll be healed. So this is Matthew 9, verses 20 through 22. And behold, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years came behind him and touched the hem of his garment. For she said within herself, if I may but touch his garment, I shall be whole. But Jesus turned about, and when he saw her, he said, Daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. And the woman was made whole from that hour. This is the word of the Lord. She touches his robe and she's healed by that because she believed that if I can just touch his robe, I will be healed.
The implication is that the thought, what's that, mind over matter? Yeah. I mean, I can get behind that.
And that's why it's having faith saves is just another way to phrase it. So who should be allowed to label people? Licensed professionals, right? Except during Flu 20, a popular phrase popped up to trust the science. Scientists of the present are always wrong in the eyes of their successors. The scientific method doesn't prove, it disproves. Galileo was persecuted by the leading scientific minds of his time. Schrodinger's cat should have made every scientist think their observations were wrong. It shows the perimeters required to look at a problem, change the solution. In the case of an atom, you can either observe an electron's spin or location.
You object science? I mean, I feel we should bring back Pluto. I think that's like, it's not fair that we said it's okay and then kicked it out of the group, and now it's like, forget you. No.
I agree.
I'm a hard Plutoer.
Pluto's birthday is around your birthday.
Pluto's a planet,
so we celebrate
mainly because we learned it. But now it's a dwarf planet but it's because they redefined what a planet was unfairly to Pluto. So the problem is, if you add Pluto, then you add its satellite, which is, I can't think of the name right now, but that is roughly, it will be in the size of Pluto. So then we would have 10 planets instead of 9. So now
But we
we
could
just
just
have 8.
We've already said it's a
back,
satellite.
yeah, we just
Isn't it
go
like
back to say these are
Jupiter
the
has
9
like
planets.
70 moons? Like, yeah,
Right.
we can
And
say what we want to say.
And Pluto
I
has
think a few
ancient
satellites
Greek
are the size
backgrounds.
of Pluto, which is why it's a problem.
Yeah, but it
Yep.
was a special planet originally. It was like it's like the oldest of all the kids. Like you have special privileges even though you're basically the same as the ones that are younger than you. But because we made up these rules, that's what we decided.
And this is what I'm talking about, that the
Yeah.
generations coming up with different rules, they end up messing things about where it's not important the number, how big Pluto is. It's just we said Pluto is a planet. We live our lives that way. What is a planet? It doesn't matter. It's the 9 planets. That's a planet.
It
Yeah,
sounds
you
like a
can see
very
it that
boomer
way.
conversation right now.
And I mean, that's why kind
It's
of
like back in my
they
day, this is
gave it
what it
a
was, and that's what it
caveat
will
of a
always
dwarf
be.
planet. But uh, I mean, it's still
So what would
a
be
planet in a sense.
the Gen Z version of planet talk, that like we're happy with our 8 planets? We're happy with how the science has controlled our lives and put us in little booths and wrapped us up in our classrooms. Anyway, I've expressed how words shape your reality. And if you're going to be branded, make it something like king and priest. Those are valuable people, and the world needs more valuable people. The world is mind, is a tool for self actualization. Telling people you believe in them causes them to push themselves. I also try to be a good example so that people can say, I'm close to the king and am worthy to be in the royal family. Royal here is nothing more than a high standard and symbol for success. What is the standard? High. What is the highest? Holy. Jesus Christ. Amen. Anything on that, or would you like to do some 24?
So I would say that don't let people control your happiness and your worldview. That is a fool's errand. You should control how you are happy. People don't make you happy, you make yourself happy. So you have to control it yourself. Don't focus everything on being validated by other people. You have to be comfortable in your own skin, comfortable with yourself, and you have to produce your own happiness, your own future.
Whereas if you are feeling
Well, as long as your
unhappy
happiness
or
doesn't come
sick,
from the expense
then
of other people.
it makes sense to go see
Right.
a professional.
But I
Don't
mean, some
listen to
people
some
think that,
stranger
oh,
on the
I'll
internet.
only be happy if people accepted me as this. But yeah,
Mhm.
people on the internet aren't gonna if they validate you, it's not going to be a genuine validation. Your friends
And
can obviously, but I mean, you have to seek happiness within and self
it,
confidence, and you have to seek a lot of stuff within before
because I
you can
think
outwardly just pursue stuff.
self validation can also be different per person because it's going to be based on environment you grew up in and situations like that. So no one thing has all the answers. But what does have
Yeah,
solid
but
answers, the numbers are 9, 6, 1, 5. The answer I have is 9 minus 5 equals 4. 4 times 6 is 24. Times 1 is 24. Make sure to check out Flizzo on social media. That's PHLIZO. Follow Alex on Google Maps. Link in description. Check out my website, drawingmylifeaway.com. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a nice day. Goodbye.
Deuces.